and wham! This big crack. It sounded like a bomb went off, and then it really started shaking, man. Hey, everybody. We're here at the Green Room, Regal City Media. Fred Satterfield, David Snelson Smith, and we're going to give you our unique read on the 1964 Alaska earthquake, since David and I were both living there in elementary school at that time. Yes, I know. It was right after the earth cooled, and then people began to live in Anchorage. So imagine this. 5:30 at night, we're getting ready to tune on our favorite TV show,
Fireball
Fireball XL5. And we're going to give you our own personal experience of an incredible, disastrous, actually world event. This earthquake was measured, I believe, 8.7. It's since been upgraded to 9.2 with more accurate readings.
Making it
shook.
The biggest earthquake recorded in the U.S. and the second biggest earthquake recorded in the world.
In the world. Amazing.
And we lived through it.
We did live through it, and that is a bit of a miracle in and of itself. I lived in Turnagain. My dad had just purchased a lot and built a dream home in Turnagain. He was a contractor, and we lived in that house 6 months until this earthquake hit. David, tell the audience where you were living.
We were living in an area called South Mountain View. Also, a house that your dad built that we moved into. So he built the house for us. And I think we both moved into our houses about the same time. I think you might have been maybe a month or so before or after. I don't remember. But we all moved into our house around the same time. And and we were at home. No school that day because it was Good Friday, and those are during the days when they would actually take off from school during Good Friday. So, and that was a good thing because all the kids were at home, and there were several schools that were totally destroyed during that because of that earthquake. Of course, it was 5:36 in the evening.
That's when it actually hit.
Right, yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and relate your personal experience, and then I'll jump in after that.
Well,
so
sure.
Once set it up where you're at the house.
Okay, well, my brother and I, sitting on the floor, we had our big, gigantic 13-inch TV sitting on a roller, because it was one of those type where we could watch TV while we're eating, so you roll it around to different parts
roll
of the
it
world.
in, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's on a roller. That's very important to understand because, well, I'll get to that. So it's sitting on it on the rollers. We're settled in. The show begins. Fireball XL5, and it begins, and we're watching it, and and my mom comes out. She's baking pies. Rhubarb strawberry pies, and this is rhubarb that actually grew wild in Alaska, and we had picked it and everything, and so she's making the rhubarb strawberry pies, and they're all sitting cooling on the kitchen counter, and on the stove is a big pot of stew that because what we like to do is what my mom liked to do is she'd make these big pots of soup or stew or chicken and dumplings, and we would eat it throughout the week during lunches and stuff like that. Okay. My mom comes out. My sister is also sitting in the chair behind us. She's reading a book while my brother and I are watching the TV, and my mom comes out and she goes, "Did you feel that? I think we're having a tremor." And my sister goes, "Yeah, I can hear it." And then we hear this, it almost sounds like a big locomotive that's coming. What is that? Well, looking around, but hey, I'm interested in my TV show, so do not interrupt me. I don't care what's going on. It could be a car wreck outside. Doesn't matter because, we're watching our TV show.
Dun, dun,
And my
dun.
mom goes, ha, yeah. So mom goes back into the kitchen. And pretty soon, I mean, all hell breaks loose. And the TV is bouncing on this roller thing, and it's rolling back and forth. And my dad comes out, and he goes, get out of the house. He's grabbing and my sister runs in and grabs my baby brother. He's not even a year old yet. And grabs him and runs outside. So the back door is in the kitchen area. So they're back outside. Understand, this is March in Alaska.
Oh, it's cold.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah. And my dad throws everybody up on top of the car. So we're all sitting on the car barefoot, except for me. I'm still in the house because I'm trying to save the TV that is falling off this, right? And I catch it. These things are heavy. I'm what? Almost 9. I'd be 9 in the following September. Yeah. So I caught it. Good. Because I didn't want that TV getting ruined. I wanted to see the show. After all this is going, I want to see how the show is going to end. But I run also over to my side and start catching lamps. I'm trying to keep things from breaking, so I'm catching things that are flying around. My dad's going, David, get out of the house. Okay, so I'm trying to stand up. I'm down, up. I could not stand up. So my dad comes running in through the back. He comes through the dining room and he makes this full circle. As he's going, he grabs my belt from my back and carries me like some luggage and boom, throws me up because I could not stand up. But man, he's running through there. Okay, all of this happening during the earthquake, and then we're out there, and of course the car's bouncing around. We're having trouble trying to stay on the car, because it's bouncing us, and you're sliding down, and and everything. 4.5 minutes is what that thing ran. And so I had plenty of time for me to catch the TV cap, catch a couple of lamps, get carried out like a suitcase by my dad and thrown up on top of the garage, on top of the car. At the same time, my sister had gone and did all. Now, your dad had built these homes in South Mountain View on a gravel pit, what used to be a gravel pit. So we were on hard rock. Our house.
You had some solid ground there.
Oh, it was, not a crack, not anything. 9.2 and not a crack. Now, my apartment in Santa Monica, when the Northridge quake hit, and that was 6 something. Okay, so the Alaska quake, 9.2, I think that's 300 times greater, or it might be even more than that.
Exponentially larger each number.
So it was only 6 something, and I had cracks all over my apartment in Santa Monica, completely different. But in Anchorage, our house, nothing. In fact, none of the houses there. But no.
Interesting point, though. We went through this as kids. Then we both wound up moving to California, and we suffered through those earthquakes in California too.
That's something, yeah.
So,
yeah, something.
Anyway, I don't mean to step on top of you there. Go ahead.
Well, but what we didn't have, and of course, when we get to your story, where it's you had a lot more going on in Turnagain, and I'll let you explain all of that.
Sure.
So we fared well, except no gas, no electricity, no water. All of that's now broken and shut off. And that's crucial in Alaska in winter to have, because, and so the homes that were on each end of the block, so when your dad had laid out all of that, he made those homes they were, even though ours had a basement, it wasn't considered 2 stories, but, so was it your Aunt Lorraine who lived in the one
Aunt
house
Lorraine
in the corner?
lived down the block, yeah.
And her house had a fireplace, and she was in the 2-story house. And, everybody on our streets was related. So that's where we spent the next couple of nights because we had no way of heating the house or getting water or anything like that. Well, she didn't have water either, but she did have that fireplace. And so half the block, well, half the street, I should say, was staying in her front room and sleeping there. And my dad had portable radio, shortwave radio, so he could hear what was going on and everything. And then the next morning we get up and it's snowing. I mean, heavy snow. But when it snows, temperature comes up a little bit, so it was a little bit warmer, and that was nice. That big pot of stew became very important because it ended up feeding the block. And it didn't fall off the oven or anything. It stayed. However, those rhubarb strawberry pies, they went everywhere. They were all over the kitchen, the walls, the ceiling. They even made it to the dining room and part of it into the front room as well. How that happened, I don't know. But the strawberry pies were everywhere. That stew and in this gigantic pot stayed on the oven, never spilt or anything. And that was great because that ended up feeding the neighborhood where they lost all their dinners and stuff like that because that was the time when they were cooking. But that's my story. The best part of it was we were out of school for a couple of weeks as a result of that.
I'll tell you, in addendum to that, you mentioned everybody kind of in the area of your house were all related.
Mm-hmm.
Right next door to you, my Uncle Art Kutcher and Aunt Sheila.
That's right.
Their family lived there. So my aunt and uncle were right next door to you guys with all my cousins. And so and then my Aunt Lorraine, now they were all in business together. We had this construction company called Reno Builders, and we'd all moved up to Alaska right after statehood. My folks and my grandparents, my grandfather, Fred Kutcher, was kind of the patriarch of the family, and he'd moved everybody up there. They were going to build housing after statehood, and they actually did pretty well there. The earthquake, however, did set them back. The houses they built in Mountain View wound up surviving pretty well. My dad had picked a lot out in Turnagain with a beautiful view of the Cook Inlet. So we had this nice house out there, beautiful lake. I remember we had these great big picture windows, and we could see these huge icebergs float through the inlet. Every day it was like another parade of icebergs coming through, and they all looked different. I remember as a kid, that was pretty fascinating to see them float through the inlet like that. And nothing between our house and the inlet, really. It was quite a ways off, probably a couple of 100 yards off,
But you were up on a bluff overlooking.
Yeah, we were kind of up on an elevated area. And
by the way, it's called Turnagain Heights for that reason.
Okay. Yeah, and so we were home that day, and my brother Tate, my brother Tracy, both my younger brothers, and I had gone to my parents' bedroom to watch Fireball XL5. 5:30, we are there. We're on their bed, watching a little TV. My mom and dad are in the kitchen area with my little sister Marla, who is still just crawling. She wasn't even walking at that point. So 5:30, we're there. We're all set. Steve Zodiac loads up in the Fireball XL5. They take off. The episode's just beginning. All of a sudden, we feel this tremor now, as you've experienced. We had tremors up there all the time, and they would just run through, and then they'd be over with, And it got to be where we don't even think about it. Oh, it's another tremor.
Yeah.
No big deal. That's how this started. It's like you were reflecting. It started, and then it was like, then it didn't stop. It just kind of kept going. And our chest of drawers where that TV was started kind of do a little jig. And then the TV started walking a little bit, and then it kept going. And it was like we looked at each other like, When's this going to stop? Then we heard that sound you mentioned, like that locomotive type sound. And it's really jigging. And now the TV is dancing forward. And I'm thinking it's going to come right off the Chester drawers. And wham! This big crack. It sounded like a bomb went off. And then it really started shaking, man. And all the change and any loose impediment in the room began flying, just flying all over the place. I grabbed my brothers. We got down on the bed. My mom and dad had these pillows, big pillows. I put them over our heads. Now we're on a hardwood floor, and this king size bed's on casters. We started going from wall to wall. Bam, bam. We were on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Bam, bam. Stuff flying. And I'm not kidding. We were zipping. There were things in the room going like this, every which way. It seemed like it lasted for an hour. Now, you talked about your dad coming and grabbing you by the belt. You were having trouble walking straight to the door because it was like you were on a boat.
Yeah.
The floors and everything were just going like this, helter skelter. Wall. There's a wall here, then the wall's over there. And we got slammed up side the wall, this one wall one time. It kind of threw me off the bed. I jumped up, and it was going right for the window. And I got thrown off the bed, and it almost threw me out this window, and the window moved. And I hit the wall, got on the ground, got back on the bed, got under the pillows, and we just continued until it finally started to subside. But man, that 5 minutes, I mean, set your watch for 5 minutes and just don't talk for 5 minutes. See how long that lasts? That's how long that actually shook. It was 4.5 minutes, they said. When we got our heads up out of that pillow and it stopped, the door of my folks' house, bedroom, had come off the hinges, and it was wedged shut. Now, there was a full-length mirror on that door, and it had come off, and somehow it was wedged against the door. As I'm trying to open the door, this mirror is wedged here, and I was afraid if I kept pulling on it, it would shatter the mirror on us. Well, we couldn't get out of the house, out of the room. The door is this wide. I reach up, I put my leg on the door jamb. I had Tracy put a pillow in between the mirror, and I pushed and pushed until that mirror, like a blade, cut into the door. And somehow I had superhuman strength as a 9 years old, and pulled that thing, and it cut into that door enough to where the door was this wide. And Tracy Tate and I scooted out of that little crack into the front room. Now the front room, furniture was askew everywhere. Big corner piece of furniture that was in the corner with all kinds of dishes, that was down. Everything was helter skelter. I understand that, as my mom reflected, my little sister had crawled across the room. My mom was trying to get to her, and that corner piece came down with the dishes right over my sister, and then it went back up. Nothing fell out of it. It went right back up, and my mom got my sister and pulled her to safety. But it came actually down. Nothing fell out. That's how weird this was.
Yeah.
The way that wave would go, stuff would go forward and back. End tables would flip in the air. This end table on this side of the room didn't even move. Nothing even came off the table. Over here, the thing hit the ceiling. So strange. One other thing I mentioned about the stuff flying in the room, before we left our parents' bedroom, I remember looking up by the door jambs, and there were quarters and pennies and dimes stuck in the side of the wall, right into that drywall. That's how fast those things were going and hitting things. When we got out into the picture window, I noticed none of the windows in the front room were broken. These great big picture windows overlooking the inlet. None of them were broken. And I'm looking out the window, my dad yelling, "You kids get away from those windows." You pull back. I look out that window, and our front yard, the turf had slanted up like this.
Mm-hmm.
The trees were sticking up
Yeah,
out of the
still.
ground sideways, and they were still doing this flopping, and all the snow was coming off them.
Mm-hmm.
It was so bizarre. I looked at a neighborhood across the street. I couldn't see the houses. They were sunk down to the roof line. All the houses across the street had sunk into the earth.
Mm-hmm.
It was surreal. I see all of this in color today as I'm describing it to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely breathtaking and horrifying, but through the lens of a young child seeing this, it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be in our brain forever. I mean, things like that will stay. And we got two perspectives of what happened in the same town. We're not that far apart from each other, but our house was built on, this bedrock. I mean, we couldn't even grow grass in our front yard. That's, but, and Turnagain was built on clay. And that clay,
whole layer of hard clay out by the inlet.
Right. And it liquefied. As soon as when the earth started to shake, it liquefied. And so your wave was more like the waves of water. I mean, it is,
huge crevices. Our neighborhood looked like a bomb went off out there. And I'm talking about crevices, not cracks in the ground. I'm talking about, my dad gathered us up. We got out of the house. I remember I had to run downstairs and get some clothes because our bedrooms were down in the basement. We had this one rumpus room in the basement. The fireplace was completely spilled out into the floor. The fireplace upstairs was intact, but the one downstairs had all the brick and everything was just demolished.
Wow.
I grabbed what we could grab, ran upstairs. We all met in the entryway, and then we left the house. When we got outside, we realized that our house was separated from the garage by about a 3-foot crevice.
I remember
it had
that.
actually split apart. Behind a car that was in the driveway, there was another crevice, and then on each side of our house, or on each side of our house were two huge crevices. The one over here was 10 or 15 feet wide. And we were standing there, what are we going to do? And our feet are cold. We were in our socks. In fact, we got out of the house so fast. My brothers and I are standing on these pillows that we put on the ground, and we've got blankets over us. We make our way to the neighbor's house. We managed to get over there. And they put us in some extra clothes from the kids, and then we all leave, and we realized that this crevice that had almost gone on one side of our house, gone around, had not hit our neighbor's house, but it looked like it was back over on the neighbor on the other side.
Right.
We suddenly felt another shake, an aftershock. This 15-foot crack that was on the far side of our neighbor's house, keeping us from getting out of this island of dirt where we were. This lot was now an island. It shook. The aftershock shook, and it closed that crevice to where it was only about 3 feet wide, 4 feet. My dad and our neighbor had grabbed some rope. They threw it across some trees, got the kids across, ferried us all across that crack, got everybody on that side, and then we realized there was another crevice beyond that, and it had gone right through the middle of our neighbor's house on that side.
I remember
Their
that.
house had just V'd down into this crack, and it was a beautiful home in its day, and it had just, and people were in there screaming. My father and the neighbor got us up to some safe road. They grabbed those ropes and they went back into that house and got those people out. And you could hear them screaming. You could hear the kids in there. I hear it right now in my head in stereo, and they got them out.
Thing that you didn't mention that I think is important is, when your dad was doing all this rescue, him and the neighbors, but your dad had been, actually your whole family was in a car accident, just a week prior, right?
It was 2 weeks prior. We were coming back from a vacation, and we were on the Alcan Highway coming up. We got stuck in a blizzard and wound up in a head-on collision with a van. We were in a station wagon. We got caught in the snowdrift, and the drift pulled the cars together, the grain of the drift.
Yep.
My mother almost died. She
got a
huge laceration across the forehead
and
a concussion.
Your dad had a broken arm.
My dad had tried to turn away from that car so powerfully that he actually broke the steering wheel, and in so doing, he fractured his arm. So he was in a cast during the earthquake while he was doing the rescuing
all the people,
and he just got out. My dad, the things he went through there in that month, I've always felt like if he didn't crumble with all the pressure and all of the anxiety of what happened during that time, if he could stand up under all of that, I could do anything too. It just made my whole life, what an example of how to deal with life. We're probably showing right now some photos of Turnagain. You can see what our neighborhood looked like. It was just absolutely destroyed. In fact, our neighborhood was right just a block or two adjacent to where now is the earthquake park up there.
Right.
In Anchorage in the Turnagain area. We made our way down the street, walking kind of stunned. And we got to a little bit of higher ground. The police were gathering up there. The good thing is that the kids had been home, and my dad had just gotten home half hour early before the earthquake. He got home from work. Most people were already at home on Good Friday. And I think that probably helped immensely in the area. We subsequently went to our pastor from the Assembly of God Church up there. We went to their house. Their parsonage was on higher ground. And we wound up in their basement. It's a rather large basement. A lot of the church people who had been displaced from their homes, we were all gathered there. We spent the night there. Everybody was on sleeping bags on the floor, bringing food, soup, no power, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
No water, no fresh water, anything. All of that had to be found. And of course, in Alaska, people prepared for things like that at that time a little bit more than say, the lower 48 because of extreme weather conditions all year round.
Sure, because you'd have power outages and there's nothing you do about it, but we would have emergency. Yeah.
We found out at that time, I remember my dad coming in. They'd been on the radio, and I remember them coming in saying they'd heard that they had a radio going. They were worried about a tidal wave.
Yeah, the tsunami.
And they were saying, and they tried to hush their voices. They didn't want to scare the kids and everybody, but they said it could be 50 feet. And we're right at Anchorage. We're in the inlet there. Well, so they were moving everybody to as high a ground as they could get them. That was the big push. Now, fortunately, the tidal wave didn't really hit Anchorage because there were the islands in between, but we got an incredibly high tide, but we didn't get the big tidal wave like Seward and other areas.
And I remember asking my dad when we were hearing that on the radio, and I was afraid because I heard it, and I said ask my dad, is it gonna? Are we gonna get the tsunami here? And his answer was, well, no, it's going to have a lot of buckaroo to make it this far. That was just imagine a Texas accent with that. I still remember that today. But the things that we do remember. But right, it didn't. And you're right, we did get the higher tides, and that was enough to put, it covered Portage, the city of Portage. And, but remember the Seward Highway? All of that had dropped, and much of the road was underwater, especially the part that used to go through Portage. And Portage, for the longest time, you could still see the tops of the gas station and some of the homes that were in Portage there, and now they're all just under the water there. Yeah,
it's just amazing. The death toll wasn't more than between 115, 130. I've seen all different numbers of what that is, and some people were killed because of the quake, some because of the tsunami, but.
And most of it was because of the tsunami. The earthquake itself, the deaths were only in the teens, but the rest of it was all because of the tsunami.
Downtown Anchorage was devastated. I mean, we had a new J.C. Penney standalone
beautiful
store,
5-story building at the time, largest at the time.
It was like, hey, we've got a Penny's.
Anchorage is now a real town.
It was awesome. And the entire side of that building had just broken away and fallen down in the street, crushed vehicles. Whole sections of like 4th Avenue had sunk 15 feet down.
Yep.
Right in the storefronts, the businesses, Denali. Denali Street was hit the same way. The Denali Theater, which is a movie theater down there, it completely sank.
Right. And they had to bring people out. They were in the building when it sank, and they had to bring them out through the roof.
Yeah.
And then they would just step off the roof and practically onto the sidewalk. The sidewalk stayed where it was. The building dropped. 4th Avenue was just a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're talking angles like more than 45 degrees, and there's cars there that slip down. I mean, it was like something off of a movie set.
There was this one story related. It's always stuck in my head. It's kind of funny, but these guys got trapped in a bar down there, and there's several people, and they couldn't get to them right away. And they survived for 3 days on beer and cheese.
I used to work for the Anchorage Times back in the 80s, early 80s, and the publisher was Robert Atwood. And a real nice guy, and he would come talk to us every once in a while, and I was asking him because I'd heard something about a story that he had about the earthquake, and he goes, "Oh yeah. I was running out, and I fell down, and my hand went into this crack in the ground, and it closed up on my hand, and I couldn't get my hand out."
Yeah.
Well, I figured out it was because I had been playing my trumpet, and my hand was still holding on to the trumpet, and it was stuck.
Stuck in the
so
crack.
He let go of his. He had to let go of his trumpet because it was now inside the crack. But he was able to pull his hand out. Stuff like that is just, And hearing those stories as a kid, where somebody would fall in and the crack would close up on them.
Yeah.
When we came out, your dad was giving us, and this is after the quake, much after, giving us a tour of Turnagain and all of the stuff that was going on there and the cracks and everything. And I would be like walking all the way. Your dad and my dad would just jump over the cracks, but I'd go all the way around and try to find it, because I was scared if I fell into it, it was going to close up on me. That's how those stories, stuck with me as a kid.
After talking about the aftermath of that, a week after the quake, fortunately, my dad's company had a model home that was for sale. We were able to move into that home.
And that was a real nice home too. I liked it.
It was 1 week to the day on a Friday, I think it was in the afternoon, maybe around 4:00 or something.
Oh, I know where you're going. Yep.
Now we're always, and there were a lot of aftershocks after the main quake, but every time you'd think you felt something, you looked at a chandelier. You got to where you were just jumpy. Everything felt like you were shaking. Well, there was a 5.0 aftershock that afternoon, and we thought it was all starting again.
And it was almost a week to the minute that it hit.
Yeah, it was. And I remember I was downstairs when it started, and my two brothers come flying down the stairs from upstairs. They were screaming, "Mama, Mama!"
We did the same thing.
My sister was in the high chair, and my mom was in the kitchen, and stuff started flying in the kitchen. We all got under her apron, so to speak. She got us all gathered together, and we got underneath the kitchen table and rode that one out. But it was 5.0. That was the aftershock.
Yep.
Things finally started getting into recovery mode, and eventually the schools opened up. Well, we wound up moving to this new location. Well, we went to a new elementary school.
Rogers Park.
Well, the governor and they got disaster relief, and they got things worked out to where people could deal with their mortgages and their loss of homes and things like that. FEMA stepped in, or the equivalent thereof at the time. And our house, the top part of our house was salvageable. And they actually moved it off that lot once they filled in the crevices and got backhoes and everybody in there. They condemned that lot, and every lot near my house, they were condemned. So by doing that, they moved the actual top layer off, and they wound up staging a lot of these homes they moved off there onto several miles away onto the lot of the new school I was going into, Rogers Park.
Yep. Because that ended up being the same school I was going to that year.
Yeah, we wound up going to school together. And so I remember.
Yeah. I remember going, Freddy, isn't that your house? Isn't that your house? And they had it behind a chain link fence, staged in this area. We'd go out for recess, and there's our house up on these blocks. And so the front was facing the school, the playground.
How weird is that? Years later. Now I'm at this point I'm a professional musician, and I'm on tour, and I go back to Anchorage. And I'm on tour, so I get a hold of one of my cousins who still lived up there, and she drives me over to the school there near Turnagain that I went to third grade in during the earthquake. So I wanted to retrace my steps from when I used to walk home to and from school to find where our house used to be. And by retracing my route, I did find the area where the house was. Now, because of the bluff and the way some of the neighborhood had just kind of slid away,
right,
it wasn't exactly the same, but I did pinpoint through some landmarks and various things that I still had recollection of where the house used to sit.
Okay, yeah.
I took my video camera with me, although I can't find the video now, but I was on a little tour with it. And I stood right there and looked at that lot, and they were building another 3-story house on that same lot right then. They were framing it out. Beautiful home. And I'm thinking, those lots were condemned.
And they were condemned for a reason, because it's all clay.
And those people have no idea what they're building that dream home on. That ground is mighty shaky ground. A few blocks away, you can go see where the clay and everything is shot up. Still in Earthquake Park over there, you can see where this big chunks of Earth just shot up out of the ground, like
Oh, yeah.
monoliths, you know.
Yeah, Earthquake Park became our make out area, you know. You take your girlfriend and make
I'm
out.
glad somebody enjoyed it. Anyway, that's my personal recollection of the event 60 years ago, celebrating surviving that.
Now, what if I told you, Freddie, you know, I forgot to hit record?
Did you really? You rascal.